What up? This is Matt with Gearzombie, and today we're going to talk about what computer is best for recording.
Gearzombie.
All right, let's talk computers, but before we get started, I'm recording this on an Aston Stealth. I'm in love with this mic. The good people over at Aston sent this over to me to review, and I've done a bunch of stuff with it. I recorded our Home Sweet Home cover with this.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home sweet home.
Full review on that's coming. The reason I'm making this video is because I get computer and sound card related questions all the time. And over the last week in a few different forums, I saw a whole bunch of different questions and a ton of misinformation being flung around. So I wanted to try to hopefully clarify and make it a bit easier for you if you're looking for a computer or if you're having problems with a computer, what you should be doing for recording. First, if you're new here, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when I'm sending you these videos. If you're new to this channel, this whole audio production thing is not my full-time gig. My full-time gig is computers. I've spent the last 22, 25 years in technology in one form or another. Currently, I'm an IT manager. I've worked as network admin, system administrators. I've been in hardware and software the majority of my adult life. So I've had to spec out things all the way from high-end imaging machines for hospitals, servers for web development and hosting, all kinds of stuff. My full-time job is solving technical problems. So try to stick to the end. I'm going to cram a bunch of information in here. Number 1, Mac versus PC. Put a nail in that coffin. There is no benefit in you using a Mac or a PC at all anymore. Absolutely zero technical benefit. Whether or not you use a Mac or a PC anymore is completely dependent on factors other than I need to use a Mac or a PC for audio recording. Now it comes down totally to what software are you using, what external hardware are you using. If you're using an interface that is only Mac compatible and you want to stay with that interface, you're obviously going to need to use Macs. If you're using software, something like Logic, that is only for Apple computers, then you're obviously going to have to stay Apple. That being said, if you're using any piece of hardware, I use Motus, they can go cross-platforms. That doesn't make a whole lot of difference then. But the day and age of people saying that using Mac computers is better for the creatives, that's long, long gone. And with the recent announcement of the new Mac Pros, you can get a gigantic machine. Now, I would say 99.9% of us aren't going to have the cash to use a Mac Pro spec'd out to what we would want it to be. Well, for pennies on the dollar, you could be working in Windows, you could get just as much horsepower, get whatever you want for 4K monitors, and not be stuck with an inferior spec machine just because it's an Apple. Honestly, I would say the Mac versus PC debate pretty much ended once Apple went over to Intel processors. Number 2, I saw a post on Facebook this week where a gentleman said he was having a hard time with his recording machine that was an i5 HP. So many of the comments were, well, your problem is because you have an i5 HP. I hate it when people say stuff like that because they shouldn't comment. They have no idea what they're talking about. I recently moved to a new machine here. It is literally the first time since I bought my first computer, and we're talking like 2000, that was like a 500 megahertz HP, that I have purchased a PC. I've always built my own. The only reason I bought this one, I wanted to move to an i9, and when I spec'd out what I wanted, the cost for me to order that machine from Dell versus building the identical machine myself was considerably more expensive when I bought the parts individually. The machine that I was using prior to that was an i7 Sandy Bridge. I want to say 2008-ish. And the only reason I moved is because I started shooting everything in 4K, and I wanted to be able to run my 4K timeline without hiccups. My audio never blipped ever. I never really had any issues, and if I did have issues, it wasn't the computer, it was my DAW. Every DAW has its own set of hiccups. Every DAW will crash. People saying things like, oh, it's an i5, it's HP, that's your problem. For starters, you need to look at what the cores mean. i3, i5, i7, i9. An i5 is better than an i3, an i7 better than i5, i9 better than i7, and usually what it comes down to is the amount of physical cores, whether or not it uses virtual cores, the amount of cache on the chip. Those, just keep those numbers in mind, and the bigger number is generally the better number. An i7 today is better than an i7 from 5 years ago. So you do need to kind of be aware of the specs and what it is you're looking at. A lot of the other comments were you need a minimum of an i7. It's just not true. Where you're going to need more horsepower is with applying effects, using virtual instruments. Things like that are going to tax your machine a lot harder than just general in and out recording. Number 3, audio interface. I saw plenty of people as I was searching around on this topic that are trying to do multi-track recording with their built-in sound card on whatever device they're using. Stop it. If you're doing any kind of actual music recording, any actual editing, you need an interface. And it doesn't need to be an expensive interface, but you need something to offload that conversion. The little tiny sound cards in your computer are not going to cut it in the long term. I have a few different budget price sound cards down in the description. Take a look at those. That will make your life so much better. I saw over and over and over that you need a minimum of 32 gigs of RAM for recording. A minimum? No, not so much. I would say at a very minimum, don't run any less than 8 gigs of RAM. Preferable would be 16. Each version of Windows seems to get a little fatter and fatter rather than leaner and leaner. If you're serious about a recording machine, look at 16 or higher. I saw people that said you need at least a terabyte hard drive in order for recording. I hope those guys stub their toes or at least step on Legos. The hard drive in your computer is probably the most important component as far as performance goes. If you are running an older machine with a spinning disk, If you're running an old computer with spinning hard drives, this is spinning disk right here. There's the back side of it. By the outline here, you can see there we go. You can see the circular shape. If we took this apart, there's metal platters in there and they're stacked. And so you have the stack of plates, and then you have these read-write heads that go between the plates and they go back and forth. Those are scanning the plates. This is a 7,200 RPM drive. Data is only going to go in and out of this hard drive as fast as the physics of spinning disks will allow it to go. However, if you take that same machine and buy yourself an SSD hard drive, this will wake up your machine like it drank a bunch of these. The biggest bottleneck on most computers is a physical storage. So for the guy that's like, I have an i5, that's an HP, okay, 2 things that would probably make that machine better: putting more RAM in it, swapping out the spinning disk for an SSD. I'd be willing to bet that most of your troubles go away. There was a handful of people that said to go to Sweetwater, or there were other companies that would build machines that were custom configured with parts designed for audio recording. I would be very leery of any company that tells you they're putting parts in there specifically designed for audio recording, because truth be told, you're not going out and buying recording machine motherboards, another one I saw. You're not buying audio production memory. You're not buying audio production hard drives. As a matter of fact, once you plug an external interface in, you've offloaded a lot of the work that the computer has to do. So most of that stuff doesn't matter anyway, because we're talking about the processing of audio data, which the boxes outside of your computer are going to do the majority of the work for. You'll definitely pay a premium to have a custom built machine made for that from a company that does that. And I'm not discouraging purchasing from one of those, but I honestly think this is where your point of diminishing returns comes. If you just picked up a properly spec'd Dell or HP, I think you're going to be just fine if audio recording is your primary function. AMD versus Intel if you're going to the PC world. I'm going to tell you 100% of the time to go Intel, and I know that's going to make people groan and crap their pants and punch babies, and you can get into AMD processors cheaper, yes. For the most part, Intel processors are going to perform better. You can find plenty of benchmarks that will show the latest Ryzen with 87 cores, whatever the AMD flavor of the week is compared to say an Intel i9. It's generally more worth it to go with the Intel processor. But here's the most important thing. All the cores aside, you make that decision however you want to make it. But in the end, the majority of this software is coded for Intel products. It's coded for chipsets that are designed for Intel processors, and that's just the way the world works. AMD tends to be an afterthought in that process. And while a lot of these software and hardware manufacturers will support AMD AMD processors. At the heart of it, it was designed for Intel products. At this point, Intel's still king of the hill, and I don't see that going anywhere else. I'm not telling you it's not going to work. There are plenty of good machines that are built on AMD products. Keep in mind, as far as reliability, dependability, whatever other ability, most of the things that you're going to use were benchmarked and coded for Intel products. One thing that I would recommend nobody does, and that is to buy a computer from a big box store. I still see people that go in and buy laptops at Best Buy or Staples or whatever, and just the amount of spyware, malware, just crapware that's loaded on these machines because the companies like Best Buy or Staples have made deals with various software companies to load their crap on the machines. That sucks. If you do find a good deal at like a Staples or a Best Buy, make sure you're technically proficient enough to reload the OS yourself, because if you can just go in there, blow the OS out, throw the drivers on there, and run a clean install of Windows, you'll be just fine. The hardware, if you buy an HP at Best Buy or you buy it direct from HP, it's going to be the same stuff for the most part. So hopefully this helped you out a little bit. I tried to not get too technical because I figured the actual technical people aren't going to be watching this video. Hopefully I explained things in a fashion that makes sense. Just don't let anybody tell you that you're having problems because you have an i5 or you have an HP. That's a bunch of BS. Look deeper. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit like, hit subscribe, check out some of the other videos. Leave a comment down below. What are you using for your recording machine right now? Till next time, Gearzombie.